In the article Shattering the Myths About U.S. Trade Policy, the authors begin by pointing out that in the past, going so far back as to the Marshall Plan of 1948, it was always good to have free trade in America, and it was viewed as good to have free trade in America. With little red tape between borders, companies can grow in foreign markets while still having a competitive business environment in the home country. There are, of course, skeptics concerning fair trade practices. From 1991 to 2000, the economy appeared to be on the upswing, and when this era of dot-com wealth ended, the U.S. economy was in bad shape for sure, and trade practices, specifically free trade, was blamed. This is the kind of situation that fires up skeptics and gives fuel to their notion that free trade is responsible for the American slide into recession. Opposition to the trade policy here in America has two parts. One are jobs in the workforce. Most of the United States believes that international trade is bad for the U.S. because it results in loss of jobs and lower wages for the American worker. Second part of this is that many professionals agree that free trade could significantly hurt the welfare of America as a whole. In an article that these authors quote by Paul Summers, they point out what he says about developing countries. In addition to greater competition in these export markets, other countries, for example China, would increase the cost of the oil they export to the U.S. And although worldwide growth might help the more wealthy who have more unique careers such as filmmaking, the lower middle class in America would very likely suffer wage decreases. The authors point out another economist who agrees with Summers, noting that the higher trade with developing countries could very well decrease wages and also raise the gap between the poor and the wealthy. The authors proceed to study these analyses of both these economists to prove if what Summers and the other man say is valid. Within the authors' research, they discovered that trade has been given the bad guy role. To the extreme, that's simply not the case. They agree certain trade has caused harm to economy due to certain trade-related job losses and has caused some workers in specific areas to be displaced in the U.S. The authors put forward the myths surrounding free trade and explain, however, why they are myths. First myth is that the article shows us, contrary to popular belief, that an open trade policy in the U.S. is not the main cause of job losses, especially in manufacturing. There are two causes to job loss. One is increasing productivity growth in American manufacturing, and the second is a shift in demand from the American consumer to more services than goods. The second myth regards the notion that U.S. living standards are failing and wage inequality is rising because developing countries compete with the U.S. in its export markets on costs. The article points out, however, that countries both developed and developing export fundamentally different products. So even if the products and ours and theirs are in the same product category, the prices are very different, and that these products are not substitutes for each other. The article also notes what the economist John Hicks had to say about export and trading. He explained that countries in early developing stages are most likely to experience rapid growth in the industries where they have a comparative advantage. So this export-biased growth will actually improve the terms of trade of the more developing trade partner. For example, the United States being the more developed trading partner. Myth number 3, the rapid growth of emerging markets like China and India is the most important reason for the higher oil prices that hurt Americans. That's not true. We as a nation do import 58% of our oil for our energy needs, so this is an important part of our economy, especially where trade is concerned. As our oil prices have been raising over the past few years, we look to developing countries such as India and China as the reason for our high oil prices. If anything, the slow production in these countries contribute to these prices, not trade itself. The U.S. has put forth the theory that either increased global supply of oil or reduced demand on the part of us Americans by just 1% a year would reduce oil prices across the board. An active trade policy could contribute to healthy economic growth and enhance our overall standard of living. America needs to be more active in ensuring that trading orders are in place and stay in place. Both China, who as a developing country is rising by leaps and bounds in its economy, and the United States, a truly developed country, need to work together to promote leadership within the World Bank and to keep open and free trade between each other as well as smaller countries. The United States would do well to support the reconstruction of, as well as be more active in, the World Bank. Coordinating with other countries inside the aesthetics of the World Bank would be the most productive in the long run. Free trade benefits all countries who have products to export, and it definitely adds to the U.S. competitive both here and abroad.